Hey everyone, I'm Jaden,
And I'm Noah.
and we are the Super Gamer Bros. And this is the Super Gamer Bros podcast. We're just a couple of brothers who love playing games and love talking about games, so that's what we do. And today, Noah, I'm pretty excited. We're doing something a little new here. Today, we are talking about Days Gone. So, for anyone who has listened to, previous episodes of ours, they might have picked up on a few comments that you are not particularly a fan of Days Gone. Developed by Ben Studios, PlayStation 4 exclusive, released in 2018, 2019?
2019, I think.
2019. And
Maybe
so
2020.
I feel like it came out a year before Injustice and not Injustice, Last of Us Part 2, and Last of Us Part 2 was 2020. So I think 2019, yeah. And this is different because, every episode of this podcast has been games that we both have enjoyed to varying degrees, but games that we both really enjoyed playing, which is fun. It's fun to talk about things you like. But admittedly, because we talk about games faster than we can play through them, we're kind of running not low on games to talk about, but I don't know. I'm just concerned, I guess. So I thought we'd try something new here and talk about a game that one of us likes, being I liked Days Gone, and one of us, you, absolutely hates it. Like, I honestly, it shocks me how much you hate this game. Yeah, you want to talk about that?
No, I just think it's not good. I just think it's not made well.
Okay. So, yeah, we're going to yeah, I guess so. This will be kind of more of a debate style episode, I guess, because I don't know. I just thought it'd be interesting to see what particularly you didn't like about it versus what I did and what might have caused our differing opinions. Yeah, I don't know. That's all I
Speaking
have.
of,
That's all I have to say about Days Gone. I don't know what.
yeah, I wanted to say, speaking of, do keep in mind that these are nothing but our opinions. We're not claiming that Days Gone is the best or worst game in history. We are just people who play games and we
Yeah,
have opinions about them.
that is true. And I mean, honestly, Days Gone is one of the most polarizing games I've seen. Like, I feel like it was very under the radar polarizing because like Death Stranding was very polarizing, and that one was much more
Yeah,
like high bar. But Days Gone,
you're
like
right.
every person I heard had a different thing to say about whether or not they liked it and or hated it in varying degrees.
Yeah. Also, I assume we'll talk about it later, but it did have a controversy with a potential sequel. And I
Yeah.
actually researched that because I was hearing a lot of different arguments about it. So I wanted to actually look up the numbers, and I'll talk about that later. But it was pretty interesting.
Noah, so we're going to go ahead. We'll get into the setting. Why don't you lead us off here? Yeah, sure. There we
So,
go.
Days Gone's landscape consists of canyons, caves, deserts, and abandoned wastelands. Like three of those are kind of similar, but okay. The game's world is divided into several regions, with each having its own backstory and landscape. Unique landmarks and ruins can be discovered in each region. The game features a large map designed to require driving as much as possible to get around. And here's something I do want to talk about is I like two things about this game, and I'll talk about the first one here, and that is the map. The map is large. It is, the motorcycle mechanics are rough, but for a little bit, it is fun to be just driving around on a motorcycle. Not
Yeah,
even
you
the
can you
zombie part of the game.
if you want, you can read the map section at the bottom there.
Yeah, I'm gonna read that. So the map is split into three large territories, each run by a wasteland leader, split into 5 sections, as well as two smaller areas. The starting area, called Chumbucket's Territory, and the dump, which only contain one area. Yeah, so like I said, the map is large. That's what I like about it. And it is relatively dense compared to other open world games I've played that feel a little more like
Sparse.
there are, yeah, sparse. Like there's a lot of dead space in between active things in the game. Something I might call to example is like a Fallout or a Elder Scrolls. You might spend like a 15 to 20 minute period walking before you actually do something again.
Yeah, I can agree with that in some of
Yeah.
those games. Yeah. All right. So
But
no.
for this game, that traversal is somewhat fun.
And we're also going to. I did.
Somewhat fun.
So, okay. I did. We will talk about kind of each section of the map in general. Let's Noah, you want to get into it?
There's the Outer Graves, which is Chumbucket's territory. There's, wait a second. What is this? Why do you have this here?
Because Noah, today, April Fools, we are actually talking
Oh,
about
wait,
Mad
you haven't played
Max.
it.
Yes, I have, Noah.
Whoa!
I spent the latter
Oh,
half of February and the first half of March completely playing through Mad Max so that we could talk
oh,
about it
you son of a
today on our
bitch.
podcast.
Oh my God. I was telling Paige how upset I was that we were talking about Days Gone.
Oh man, I know. That's why I picked this game. That's why I picked
That
that
is
game as our false
so
flag, man.
funny. But
Oh,
I
so let
do
me let
actually,
me
now that we started that, I do think we actually should talk about Days Gone at some point.
Oh no, we will, just not today, not today.
Oh, okay, okay.
So let me
Because
flash
a
you back.
debate actually sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, let me talk to you about what's been going on in my life. So a few months ago, I discovered on PlayStation 4 that you can hide games from being visible by other people, including like they won't get news updates that you've played it because that's a thing on PlayStation 4. They can't see it
They
on
won't
your
see the
trophies
trophies.
list. They can't see it anywhere. So I thought I'm gonna play Mad Max without no one knowing about it. And then initially I was going to I thought maybe surprising you for your birthday, so I didn't have to get you a gift. But then your birthday is very close to our anniversary of the podcast. So I thought, well, we'd probably do like an anniversary thing around there, and I don't know what we'd want to do for that. And then I was just thinking about it, and April 1st just screamed into my head, and I thought, oh man, I'll tell him that we're doing a completely different game, and a game that I know that he potentially like doesn't like and wouldn't really want to talk about. And then boom, he'll get here and we'll be talking about Mad Max.
That is so funny. Yeah, I was talking to Paige and I was like, I'm so confused because I'm like, who wants to hear somebody talk shit about their favorite game? You know?
Oh yeah, yeah, no. So
Yeah, but then we were talking about, I was like, okay, this could actually be pretty good because you are a defender.
that is correct. Anyway, so
Oh, I'm so
Noah,
excited.
today we are talking about Mad Max. So
All
Mad
right.
Max, it was released in 2015, developed by Avalanche Studios. And I did check this while I was researching the game. It has absolutely no ties to the Mad Max Fury Road movie that came out in 2015. Literally none at all.
It's not
Um,
considered, I thought it was considered a movie tie-in.
it is not by like the developers or like Warner Brothers who published it. The game had actually been in development for years and years. Like it was one of those games that was kind of stuck in development hell for a bit, kind of changed stories,
Hmm.
changed directors. Corey Barlog was involved at one point, and then he wasn't.
What the hell?
And it just happened to come out around the time of the movie, which whatever. But I mean, nothing. It has nothing to do with I think really any of the movies, other than like the world and some locations are repeated. And yeah, so it is its own complete thing. And yeah, we had both heard about it when it came out because again, it did come out around the time of the movie, and I remember being confused whether or not there was a game or a movie coming out before I realized, oh, it's both. And it was one of those games that I mean, it came out and disappeared because nobody was talking about it.
Yeah, it went under the radar. Nobody bought it. Nobody talked about it. And which is funny because I think it was actually critically received well.
Yes.
And the game was fantastic. This is one of my favorite games of all time. It's in my top 3 for sure. It just stands alone as a great example of taking an existing IP and creating an original story and making everything that is represented in that world a gameplay aspect. And the fact that it was developed by Avalanche, I just remembered this a little while ago because I was talking to my friend Kyle, who we've had on the podcast before, and we were talking about Hogwarts Legacy, which is being developed by Avalanche. And I was like, oh, that sounds really familiar. And we looked it up and I was like, holy shit, they made Mad Max. That's one of my favorite games.
They're also well known for the Just Cause series.
Yes, that is also another of my beloved game series. I've played 2, 3, and 4.
So let's get into Mad Max. Right, Noah, you
All
ready?
right, I'm ready. So I'll talk about the setting.
So talk. Well, we already you already talked about the setting.
Yeah, again, like I pointed out, canyons, caves, deserts, and abandoned wastelands. The map, the different areas are all kind of similar looking. I'm not gonna lie.
I wouldn't say kind of. I would just say they are.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about the very last area. It looks extremely different, but
That is correct. Yeah.
that's the only area that looks even remotely different. Other than that, it's more like the terrain is slightly different. Like it'll be more hilly versus
Mm.
flat.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So you have the beginning area, which is the Outer Graves, Chumbucket's territory. We'll explain that in the story. Then you have Jeet's territory, which consists of different sections, which are Fuel Veins, Dry Gusty, Colossus, Black Malls, Balefire Flatland. The names for everything in this game are so great. It's so Mad Max.
I think they're stupid. If I'm being
What?
honest,
Oh, come
every
on.
time I get like a new name for something, and I'd be like, I would always think to myself, man, I bet some guy had a lot of fun coming up with these names. Probably spent like a whole afternoon just thinking of these ridiculous names for characters and locations and stuff. Anyway, so yeah, go ahead with Gut
So yeah,
Gash's territory.
Gut Gash's territory consists of Reek Hills, Parch Moon, Grit Canyons, the Chalkies, and oh god, Catavanah.
I imagine it would be Cadavanaugh.
Oh yeah, that makes more sense, I guess. Then there's Pink Eye's territory, the second to last. That is, or I mean, in terms of story. So he has Grand Rise,
She.
Knitsack. Oh, excuse me. She's the one in the wheelchair, right?
That is correct.
She has Grand Rise, Knitsack, Rotten Rusties, The Heights, and Wailing Wind. And then there's Deep Fry's territory, which is the dump. The only one that looks any different. It's pretty much just like covered in oil.
Yeah, it's a
That's
dump.
about the only difference. Yeah.
Yeah, oil and garbage.
But when you go past the dump, there is Gastown, which is the place you were trying to get to the entire game. So, the one existing area is, or the one kind of area off to the side is Buzzard territory. We'll talk about the buzzards, I'm sure, but there's not really a lot of story stuff to go out there. You just go for one thing in the story, and then that's it. So there's not really much out there.
I'll just say you do go there for 2 reasons in story, but that's fine.
Oh, and then there's the Big Nothing, which is the edge of the map.
Yeah, basically the Big Nothing is just a vast expanse of desert that, like, when you drive towards it, you'll get a little pop-up that says, like, hey, there's nothing out there. There's no food, no water. It's so vast that you can't make it across there. You got nothing. And I did actually read that initially you were going to be able to go into the Big Nothing to find rare car parts, but that was scrapped. And basically, like, the Big Nothing, I think you could technically still drive in it. It's just like goes on forever, and eventually you'll die or something. I don't know. I never actually tried it.
I never did it. There's nothing out there.
But yeah, it was initially actually supposed to be an infinitely sized, a map that had no end to it, because the Big Nothing is endless, but that didn't end up, that was scrapped. So, it's just the Big Nothing. Anyway, so now we're going to move on to the story. Right, Noah?
Yeah, you can talk about it.
Cool. So, in search of fuel, highway patrol officer turned survivalist Max Rakatansky journeys to the Plains of Silence to avoid his past. He runs into the War Boys, led by Scabrous Scrotus, son of Immortan Joe and ruler of Gastown. The War Boys run Max off the road and steal his car, the Interceptor, and his supplies, leaving him to die from his injuries in the desert. Max chases after them and challenges Scrotus to a duel on the Land Mover. Scrotus sicks his Warhound on Max, but after Max fends off the dog, Scrotus throws it off the Land Mover in disgust. Max then stabs Scrotus in the head with his own chainsaw as Scrotus kicks Max off the Land Rover.
Tell me this isn't the coolest intro to any game ever.
Yeah, that's all just one intro cutscene. I thought it was cool, like, how the game, it really does, like, it sort of kind of explains that, hey, everything went to hell, and then it's just there, and it just starts, and it just goes. Like, it doesn't care about you or what you've been doing, and I respect that. I do. Anyway, befriending the abandoned dog, Max obtains a weapon and clothes from a dead wastelander. In the desert, Max finds a hunchbacked mechanic named Chumbucket who calls him the Saint, believing Max to be a part of his automotive-based religion. Chumbucket leads Max to Scrotus and the War Boys and tells him that he is building a car called the Magnum Opus to serve as Max's replacement for the Interceptor, but it lacks critical parts. Max agrees to search for them. Max must first liberate Wasteland leaders' territories from the War Boys. Jeet, whose stronghold is an old lighthouse, and Gutgash, whose followers believe that they will be protected from a flood in their stronghold in the remains of an oil tanker. Max must then penetrate a massive gate protected by the war boys called the Jaw, using the magnum opus outfitted with an exploding harpoon. Max and Chumbucket must then save Pink Eye, a woman whose mechanical skills rival Chumbucket's, from an invasion of her silo base led by Stank Gum, one of Scrotus's top dogs.
Stank Gum.
Stank Gum. Searching for a V8 engine for the magnum opus, Max learns about a race in Gastown with a Big Chief V8 as a prize. After winning the race against Stank Gum and defeating the fighter Tenderloin in a Thunderdome duel, Max receives the engine and the concubine Hope as his prize. His victory is short-lived. Scrotus is revealed to have survived the chainsaw attack when he comes to present the prizes to Max. He recognizes Max and attacks him. After he is shot with a crossbow and thrown down a mine shaft, Max is saved by Hope, who takes him to the organic mechanic and Scab, also known as the Blood Bag. While Max is undergoing surgery, he has a hallucination that his wedding to Hope is officiated by Chumbucket and a man with a dog's head. When he wakes up, he and Hope steal the Big Chief. They drive to the Temple of Deep Freya, a friendly fire cultist. Yeah, I just was speaking of Stank Gum. I will say, I first was aware of Mad Max because there was like a sale at GameStop or something, and Mad Max was there, and you just, bought it because you were interested in it. And the first experience I had with Mad Max was actually walking in on a cutscene while you were playing the game, where Stank Gum it was the moment where you're rescuing Pink Eye from Stank Gum, and he's, talking and stuff. And I remember just walking in and going, oh, hey, that's Yuri Lowenthal. And that was all I knew about this game for years, was that there was a guy named Stank Gum who was voiced by Yuri Lowenthal.
Yeah, I wanted to say, throughout the game, they kind of like rumor that Scrotus is still alive, and you never really know. Like the whole time I was questioning it, I was like, they could just be saying he's alive and he's not, but I don't know. And then when he's finally revealed, I was like, this bitch.
Yeah.
How did he survive this? The chainsaw was still in his head.
Yeah. Crazy. Anyway, at the temple, Hope requests Max find her daughter, Glory, who had fled to Buzzard territory. He travels to the Underdune and rescues Glory from the Buzzards. Returning, he discovers that Chumbucket, having learned of Max's true intentions to take the magnum opus for himself, took the car back to his old home. Max follows him in one of Deep Freya's cars, but learns that Scrotus and Stank Gum arrived before him and tortured Chumbucket, who revealed Hope and Glory's location and their ties to Max. Max kills Stank Gum, rushes back to the temple, and finds Hope hanged to death and Glory tortured on the floor. Glory dies, and Max swears vengeance against Scrotus. Max returns to Gastown and learns Scrotus's location from Scab. Max and Chumbucket find Scrotus driving around the Purgatory Flatlands and use the magnum opus to destroy the land mover, which is pushed to the edge of a cliff. Max wants to push the mover off the cliff with the magnum opus, but is opposed by Chumbucket, who considers himself the car's protector. Ignoring Chumbucket, Max rams the land mover at full speed. Chumbucket dies in the crash, and the land mover and magnum opus are destroyed. Scrotus escapes with the Interceptor, Max's car at the start of the game, and challenges him. Max wins the battle, pulling the chainsaw blade out of Scrotus's head and finally killing him. Max enters the Interceptor and places a picture of his family on the dashboard as he drives off. I thought I hated this ending. Like, that's the end of the story. I hated it. Because it's like,
I loved it.
It's like the whole game didn't matter. He's literally right
That's
back where
the
he
point.
started.
It's Mad Max.
Dumb. I hated it. I
No,
hated it.
you're
I thought
stupid.
it was dumb. No, you're stupid.
Everything he comes in, that's what Mad Max is. He comes in, he's a drifter, and he's a begrudging hero, and then everything he does right before he gets everything, it all goes to shit, and he's right back where he started. He lost another family, he was betrayed, and he lost his new vehicle, and then he got back in his old vehicle and just kept on driving. Mad Max. He's badass.
I was just annoyed with that.
No.
I was annoyed.
No,
I
you just
was
don't
very
get it.
annoyed. No, I get it.
You
I
don't
get it. I just don't like it.
No.
No, trust me. I get it. I get the point. I
What
get why
did
they
you
did
want to happen?
Just him to settle there, I guess.
Ew, Jesus.
Or like Hope and Glory to go with them or something. I don't know.
No.
Like,
The
I know
only other way
nothing-
it could have ended is they could have lived and then he still would leave. 'Cause him staying doesn't make it. He's a drifter. He likes being alone.
Mm-hmm. Whatever. Anyway, That's the story. Um,
Yeah, I think the story is fantastic, but it is not the best part of the game.
I will agree with you there. Noah, why don't you talk to us about the best part of the game? And there is a lot to go through with the gameplay here.
Yes,
There is a lot to this
obviously
game.
the best part of the game is the gameplay. And so obviously we'll talk about the melee combat first. It's the first thing that you do. Um, and it's pretty nice, right? Mad Max has a classic, simple Arkham style of combat with a light and heavy attack, a block, and a counter or parry ability. Max also has a shotgun that he can use for an instant takedown, though it has very limited ammo at the beginning. Max also has rage, and when you fully build up his rage meter, he goes into a frenzy, boosting his attack power. He can also carry shivs for takedowns and can pick up other weapons for additional damage until they break. To heal in the game, you find water from sources like canteens or sources at like enemy camps and stuff like that, and you just fill up Max's canteen.
Yep. I do want to say when like that's the first thing you do in the game when you take control is you find the dog and then you find water. And when he first like was filling up his canteen, I got so scared because I thought, oh my god, do you actually have to like drink to you know
Yeah, I got scared of that too.
to not be thirsty in this game because you're
Like
in a
if there
desert.
is
It makes
there a
sense.
thirst meter?
Yeah, and I got so scared, but then it was like just drink water to heal, and I thought, woo, wiped off my sweat and was
I
like,
think
you
it's a
got me, Mad
cool
Max, you got
healing
me.
mechanic.
I think it's a really cool healing mechanic. But yeah, just at first when I thought, oh my god, you're gonna have to drink water, you're gonna like die of thirst. Man, I'm really glad they didn't do that.
So, a big part of the game is upgrading Max. As you level up your legend stats, you unlock upgrades for Max's armor in several different categories, from jacket to gloves to his hair. And you also unlock additional combos for use in combat. Upgrading Max uses scrap, which is the resource used to upgrade both Max and his vehicle. And it's also pretty widely abundant, and there are ways to increase the amount you get. So as the
Yep.
game goes on, it's easier to upgrade.
Yeah. I don't know about you, but the second I could, I got long hair, long beard, and that's what I had the rest of the game.
Yeah, I had the
That's
same.
always what I do. Anytime I can customize appearance, I give the guy the longest hair I can find and the longest beard I can find. So that's a cool guy.
I just thought it looked most different from the regular Max. The other
It
ones
it
weren't
very
really that different.
I agree with that, yeah. Anyway, I wanted to stop and talk about how much I loved the melee combat in this game. It is awesome. It is
It's
simple.
so good,
It is
right?
so good. So Mad Max, it has a unique feature. At least I can't think of other games that did it. I'm sure there are others where every time you hit somebody, every time you get hit, your controller vibrates a little bit. There's a guy I watch on YouTube. He does, he talks about games, obviously. And he a lot of times references when he's talking about combat, references weight. Like I remember him talking about one game where he was saying that, the weapons didn't feel like they had any weight behind them. And I thought, what the hell does that mean? It's a video game. And Mad Max made me understand what that means. Because every time I hit a guy, like everyone, like they punch slow, they punch with force. And it's like I get what he means by that now because of Mad Max. Because man, every hit feels just weight. Like there is weight behind each hit. Like you feel it, And I just loved it. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, also, another way to determine that is I think if you hit an enemy in a video game, that enemy should have a hit reaction, like a
Mm-hmm.
stagger.
Yeah.
And so like in games where like I was recently playing God of War,
Mm-hmm.
and I put it on Give Me God of War just, for fun, and it was not fun. The tutorial enemies did not have hit stagger at all.
Well, none of them do, and give me God of War.
Well, yeah, but that's why I'm like, I don't like that. I think that's a cheap way to make it more difficult. It's one of those like
Yeah.
increasing the health or the number of enemies.
Yeah.
It's a
Mm-hmm.
cheap way of manipulating game difficulty.
Yeah. And actually, now that you mentioned God of War, another game that when you're not playing on Give Me God of War, great weight behind it with the enemy
Sure.
staggering and stuff. Yeah. I also really liked Rage because it does something that, again, I have not seen in a lot of games. Really any game. Mad Max is the only one I can think of where when it builds, it automatically uses it. Which can sometimes be annoying if you're fighting, you build it up on the last guy or whatever, but it doesn't like drain completely every time. Like it stops when you out of combat, and the next time you start combat, the meter is where it was previously. So it doesn't like it's not like you have to start from scratch every time. But any game that has kind of that rage mode, that like, you know, kind of powered mode, most of the times it's a button to activate it. Or like in like the entire God of War series, it's R3 and L3 at the same time. But when you activate it with a button press, I in 99% of games never use it because I don't think about it, because I'm just in combat and I might be struggling a lot, whatever, but I don't think, oh, I have this like, superpower thing I can use. And so in most games, I never use it. And
I agree with you, except for the fact that like for me, it's like I want to save it because it's a meter you have to build up. There's a cooldown. So I'm like, I'm saving it until I'm like in a really tough spot and I'm about to die. And then that doesn't happen for like 20 hours.
that is another thing, aspect as well that happens to me, where there are times where, I save it and I'm like, oh, I'll use it in a jam. But then I either don't get in a jam where I feel like I have to use it, or I die before I can use it.
Right.
So again, that's just reasons that I really like that it is used automatically here, because I probably used Rage and Mad Max more than I've used any similar mechanic in every game I've played combined.
Yeah.
Just because I just don't. Anyway, now we're going to move on to talk about the other important aspect of this game, traversal. Specifically, we're going to go talk about cars. Noah?
What? I talked about the gameplay. You don't want to talk about the traversal first?
Well, I mean, it's all gameplay. I can talk about it. So
Well,
you
yeah,
have
sure.
the Magnum Opus. That's your car you use throughout the game. Comes with a variety of weapons that are both attached to the vehicle, or they're used by either Max or Chumbucket, such as flamethrowers, sniper rifle. You can use Max's shotgun. There's the harpoon, the thunderpoon, which is basically just like an explosive javelin, I guess, that you're shooting. Wheel spikes, border spikes. There's a ram, all the good stuff. So then car combat. According to Avalanche, this is something I saw when I looked up the game. 60% of the game focuses on car combat. Enemy vehicles come in a wide variety. Most of them are equipped for like physical combat, like they have spikes, they have armor, they have rams. Not a lot of enemy vehicles actually can attack you from a distance. So in turn, you can equip the Magnum Opus with armor and a ram to do damage to enemies, but doing so also damages the Magnum Opus. Now we're going to pause for a second. Car combat, I'll be honest, left a lot to be desired for me.
What? I loved car combat. I
I
thought it
was
was
not a big fan.
amazing.
I was not a big fan of it. I mean, it was fun, but like I thought I know absolutely nothing about the Mad Max movie series. Absolutely nothing.
Uh-huh.
I can tell you the main character is a guy named Max. But one thing that I have always associated with Mad Max, both because of times I had walked in on you playing the game because you were always in a car, and just from seeing like trailers of Mad Max Fury Road, is cars are a big deal. Like they're a big thing. So I was just shocked by how basic I felt like the car combat was, and how really I didn't do it a lot. Like mostly the car I just used to get around. And I think a big problem I have is the fact that when you ram into a vehicle or like sideswipe, there's like a sideswipe you can do, it damages the Magnum Opus. On paper, I love that. It's realistic. Of course, it also damages your car to hit somebody because it's your car. But I think for the Magnum Opus is so fragile. Like it gets damaged very quickly, very easily, especially early on, to the point where I felt like doing the physical aspect of car combat was never really an option. I felt like I could only use the shotgun or like the harpoon slash thunderpoon. But yeah, I mean that's it. Like that's what I would do. Like I never use the physical aspect of car combat except for times when it is sort of forced upon you in missions. And I just felt like that was, a shame.
Yeah, I get what you're saying about the not being able to like sideswipe and stuff at the beginning. And you're right, you do have to focus mostly on projectiles. And I don't think that's a problem at all. I actually didn't mind that because just ramming my car into the other car I think is stupid as just an entire game mechanic. It's fun for the intro just to be like, oh, this is a thing you can do,
Mhm.
but that's not how I want to, that's not my primary mode of combat. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? But if you run into somebody, like if you hit them in the front of your car and you ram them, wherever you hit them on their car, it does not do damage to the magnum opus if you hit them with the front of the car.
Oh,
Yeah, and I
I don't
use that a
remember.
lot
I feel
because
like it
there
did,
are
but
sequences where there are cars just on the side of the road and people standing outside of them. And I'll just be driving by and just obliterate that vehicle and just
yeah,
keep driving.
yeah.
And it doesn't damage
Mhm.
the magnum opus.
Yep.
There's another thing where there's a skill you can get pretty early on where the magnum opus will heal automatically. Huh?
That's not a thing.
That's not a thing?
No, like Chum Bucket can fix it, but you have to be stopped for that to happen.
Yeah,
Which,
there's not an automatic heal. I thought there was.
oh, there like you can get out and quick heal it, but that takes scrap.
No, that's not what I mean.
No, I
But I
don't think
did
there's.
use that. I used that in my second playthrough a lot more than my first.
Oh, I never used it because I was like, I
I
need the
had
scrap
to a
for
couple
upgrades.
points.
Also, did I guess did not mention that fact that Chum Bucket can repair the magnum opus at any point in time as long as you were stopped. You just push a button, he fixes it. Or if you get out to explore on foot, he fixes it while you're gone. Love that. Great mechanic. Really takes a lot of annoyance out of the game that he can fix it pretty much anytime.
Yeah, here's something else I did want to say about the cars.
Mhm.
However you feel about the car combat is fine. I personally enjoyed it, but the driving itself feels fantastic and it just gets better and better as you upgrade the Magnum Opus. And when you're in different cars, it actually feels different on the roads.
Uh,
They handle differently, they spin out differently, all that kinds of stuff.
yeah, I completely agree with you on that aspect. I think some cars just have absolutely shitty handling, and sometimes I found the handling to be inconsistent. I would maybe do a turn, and uh, I would do the turn just fine with the vehicle I'm using, whatever vehicle that is, and I would turn just fine. And then I'd come up to like say the exact same turn, and I would do nothing different, but I would spin out. And I couldn't figure out like what I was doing wrong there because sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. I don't know. I couldn't really figure out what I was doing wrong there. But really, I would say 90% of the time it is very good handling, and especially for the fact that you're driving in a desert on sand. Obviously, I expect there to be handling issues just for the sake of where you're driving. But it's good. I thought the driving mechanic was really well done.
Right. Another aspect is the races.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Okay, I didn't know if you had that
Yeah.
here.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, so then upgrading the Magnum Opus. Every aspect of the Magnum Opus is customizable, from the engine to the suspension to the tires to the body shape and paint, even. In a unique aspect, again, I don't have a lot of experience with customizing cars in games, but something that I did like. Upgrading the Magnum Opus is not universally good. A larger engine makes your car faster, but decreases your handling. But that can be offset by equipping better tires and so on and so forth. Upgrading the Magnum Opus takes scrap, and sometimes unlock upgrades are locked behind completing story missions, wasteland missions, or reducing threat in a territory, which we'll talk about that later as well. I liked the upgrades. I thought the upgrades one looked cool because they all did look different, which I like that they did have that what's the word, cosmetic aspect of
Aesthetic
upgrading it.
appeal.
Yeah, like yeah, just the cosmetic upgrades, and not just like, oh yeah, your armor's better now, but the car doesn't look any different. Like they actually do have varying levels of armor and stuff. And as well, I do like the fact that the upgrades do kind of offset each other a bit, like the larger engine requiring better tires, whatever. I thought that was cool, and again, very realistic.
True. And it ties into the archangels.
Yes, the Archangels. So the Archangels, they are different pre-built versions of the Magnum Opus that have set colors, bodies, and builds. Some are like more focused on speed, some on handling. Yeah, you get the idea. It's kind of like a set look and feel to each version of the Magnum Opus. I'll be honest, I didn't like the Archangels aspect of it.
I only used it when I was going for the trophy before I knew I couldn't get the platinum. And they all feel different. Some of them are pretty cool, but when I was playing the game just for fun, I just really didn't care about them.
Yep. I mean, very much agree with you there. I used them for races and nothing else, because why would I not want the best of everything that I have when I'm going, just traveling around and doing combat and stuff. Yeah, overall, like I felt like it was a needless thing that kind of was like padding the game time. But I'm sure there were some people that love, like, some of the vehicles looked cool. I thought the different vehicles looked cool, but I was like, I don't really care. Like, I never used them except for races.
Right.
And then other vehicles, Max can also take any enemy vehicle and add it to his vehicle collection by bringing it back to a stronghold, or completing races with that vehicle, in which then he can take that vehicle and just drive it whenever, wherever he wants. This mechanic I did not like, because again, I never use these vehicles because they're all worse than the Magnum Opus. Why would, like, the only reason to use those vehicles is for challenges, but I wasn't doing that, so I didn't use any of them ever. Like, the only time I was
Yeah,
in, I was gonna say, the only time I was in another vehicle that wasn't the Magnum Opus was a story mission or a race.
I actually like this mechanic because I like collecting the cars. Every time I would get a new one, I think like it's different process trying to commandeer a vehicle than to just, destroy it or kill the person in it and leave. But I found that to be a fun process. And I thought the vehicles, most of them, they did have a lot of repeats, but the ones that were unique were pretty cool.
Yeah,
But I agree, you're right. They didn't have a lot of, there's not a lot of reason to use it
hmm
in gameplay outside of the specific
especially a
challenges.
big thing with those compared to the Magnum Opus is whenever you're in any vehicle that is not the Magnum Opus, Chum Bucket is not with you, so you can't fix your car on the fly. You don't get any of those weapons, like any weapon. Like, you don't get the sniper, you don't get the harpoon, the
There is
thunderpoon,
one other
none.
benefit, and
Oh,
yeah, you want to talk about that?
yeah, because I completely did not put that in this document, but we'll go ahead just right here, take a break, talk about enemy types. There are 3 different factions of enemies. The War Boys, which is Scrotus's group, the Road Dogs, who are just, I guess they're just bandits, wastelanders, and then the Buzzards, who are just creepy people. They all have their own vehicles. If you're driving a vehicle of a certain faction, you blend into that faction. I assume that's what you were going to say.
Yeah, it's a cool mechanic, but I never really used it because the combat's not that difficult, so I would just take out every single place as Max.
Yeah, it just doesn't. It's cool that it's there, I guess, but I feel like there's no real purpose to it, again, except for challenges, which we'll talk about later. Also, all cars take gas. Um, it's funny using Days Gone as the false flag for this episode. Excuse me, because in Days Gone, that is an aspect of that game that I really didn't like, was the fact that you actually have to fill your bike with gas and stuff. That's a point where I'm like, okay, this is too realistic. I don't really like this. Mad Max has that same thing, but doing the, like, tutorial aspect, you have to fill up your car with gas. After that tutorial, I never once had to fill up a car with gas ever.
Exactly.
So I guess I'm fine with it, because it really was not a thing.
So true. Yeah. Well, my second playthrough, I was like, man, it's been like 15 hours since I put gas in my car.
Well, we'll talk about that in a bit, why that is as well. But also, just speaking, you do, since this is technically our traversal section, Max obviously, traversal, it sucks. That's it. Moving on.
Yeah, it's horrible.
We'll talk about that later in a bit more detail. So now, we get to our additional gameplay mechanics, which is basically everything else. So this is a big game, big map, lot of stuff to do. I tried to organize this in a way that one thing kind of just leads into the next, whatever. So we'll go ahead and start with the strongholds, the main bases of the different wasteland leaders. There are 4 of them. They act as like a garage/resting place and a fast travel point for Max. Kind of, this is an aspect I've seen in other games. Assassin's Creed 2, obviously a big one that sticks out in my head. Sort of, each stronghold has different projects that help boost the stronghold, as well as provide bonuses for Max. So for each project you complete, you get something like an auto health refill or automatic ammo refill, gas refill, which is why I never had to, do gas. Automatically
Scrap.
filling your canteen, oh, one that like reveals all the scavenging locations on the map, but a bunch of stuff that it's very useful. Like, the first thing I would do whenever I got to a new area is get all these project parts and do those, all the useful ones. Because one thing I love that Mad Max does is if you go to where a project is built in a stronghold, You can track that mission and it'll show you on the map where to find every single part for that mission, whether or not it's in a location you've been to before, which is super cool. Cuts out a lot of inconvenience and annoyance.
Yes, it does, because if you didn't know, there are thousands of scrap locations or little camps, basically.
Not thousands, but yeah, there's a lot.
It feels like thousands.
There's a lot.
There's so many.
There's a lot. I can tell you the
Yeah.
exact number later.
I actually went through all of them before I found out about the trophy.
Anyway, Noah, why don't you you can lead the rest of these.
Yeah,
I've been
okay,
talking
so-
too much.
True. So
Wow.
there are balloons, which are the vantage points of Mad Max. So you go up in it's a hot air balloon. You go up to it. Sometimes you have to refuel it, which is stupid. But other than that, I don't mind this at all. It takes a little bit of time. Max goes up, and then once you get high enough, you use binoculars to spot the points of interest. And if you look at the map, it tells you how many there are and how many you can see from that area. So you can pretty much spot all of them very quickly, very easily, and then you never have to use that balloon again. It just gets annoying when there's like refueling and breaking tethers involved, and you just want to go up and look at the areas you have to go to in this map. But other than that, I don't mind the hot air
Yep.
balloons.
I thought the fact that you do have to kind of do some work, like refueling, whatever, I thought, okay, it's a cool thing, I guess, to sort of make it not just the same monotonous task every time you go. But overall, I didn't like it most of the time. Also, you actually have to like physically wait for the balloon to get high enough for you to use your binoculars. I think that's dumb. I wish they could have just, you get in it, you press R2 or whatever it is, and then you're just automatically up there. Because again, it just like, it's literally like 15 seconds of you just holding the R2 button and slowly going up. And then after you find everything, 15 seconds of you holding the L2 button and going down. Like really just a waste of time. I don't know why they didn't just skip that. Also, using binoculars to spot points of interest. I don't like this because in every other game that has ever existed on Earth, you get to the vantage point, you press a button, everything's revealed. This one, you actually have to spot them with binoculars. If you don't, they're not revealed on the map. And there are some things that you can't spot with binoculars. Like, for example, the minefields. We'll talk about those later. So I'm like, overall, I didn't like that. I'm like, why not just have it reveal everything? Like, I get you're trying to make it more interactive than just push a button, unlock everything. I understand, but no, I just want to push a button and unlock everything.
Right. So, every region has a threat number, and that basically symbolizes the enemy presence in the territory. So you reduce that threat by completing activities, and reducing it has many benefits, most notably unlocking upgrades for the Magnum Opus. A lot of important upgrades for the Magnum Opus are unlocked by decreasing the threat in specific regions.
Yep. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's it. So a few more of the
Well,
additional
Noah,
gameplay.
Noah, how do you reduce threat in an area?
Didn't I just say that?
Well, how do you do it, Noah? Like, how do you do it, Noah?
That's what I said.
Just talk about them specifically. How do you do it?
Okay, but
Just
these have other
trying
effects.
to
They're also activities.
just trying to tee
So-
up for it, and you're not. You're just staring at the ball like you don't know what to do.
If you just let me talk. Thank you. So anyway, in the areas you have many different, basically enemy events that happen. So there are scarecrows, which are basically towers set up by, I think, Scrotus's gang officially. Oh, yep, made by the War Boys to scare people. And you take them down either ramming them or using a harpoon and just pulling it down. There are a lot of these, but they're really easy and they're never protected. So the only difficulty is sometimes there are kind of like car parkour parts where you have to ramp up to the scarecrow or you're ramping past it and you have to grab it in the air. But there's only a few like that, so it's not a big issue.
Yeah, carcore.
Oh, nice.
Thank you.
There are also snipers. There'll be sniper towers and snipers outside of bases, and they just work like snipers. If you're within their view, they'll snipe you. There's also minefields. Jaden mentioned them earlier. This is the only mechanic in the game that requires you to use a car other than the Magnum Opus. You have to use Chum Bucket's car that has the dog that Max rescued in the back. So you take Chum's buggy and drive to the minefield, and the dog basically is sniffing and barking and trying to point you in the direction of the mine. And when you get close enough, it gets revealed and Max deactivates it. This is a slow, arduous, annoying process because you have
I'm
to defuse 3 mines at each minefield.
I cannot agree with you more. When I first saw minefields and it said you use the dog to find them, I thought, oh, that's so cool. But my God, it is the most arduous process of driving around as slow as you possibly can. Because if you drive too fast, you might drive into one because you can't stop or something, which I did several times because it is literally invisible until the dog reveals it to you. And then you have to walk up to it, make sure you don't step on it because you blow up and die. I did that once and deactivate it.
Yeah, no, that happened to me multiple times.
Yeah, and there's just too many. There's like almost 2 in every section of the map, and uh, it it's just so boring. Especially because the fact that you take not Chum's buggy, you cannot fast travel because when you fast travel, it automatically puts you in the magnum opus, no matter what vehicle you were driving. So I would literally just wait and I would do all of these at once because I have to drive to all of them at once, or otherwise I'd have to go back to a stronghold to get the buggy back. And it'd be like 30, 45 minutes of me just driving to all these locations to deactivate these mines. It was one of the most unenjoyable experiences I had in the game.
Yeah, they're horrible. Something that's not so horrible are the convoys. They are larger groups of enemy vehicles driving in a set path. So once you come across the path, it's revealed to you on the map and you can see the route they're taking, but not the direction. Can be confusing sometimes, but it's not really that hard to figure out because there's a giant dust cloud wherever the convoy is. So to clear the convoy, you must destroy the main car, typically a large fuel tank, and then you can collect the hood ornament, which boosts certain aspects of the magnum opus. These hood ornaments are pretty cool, and taking out these convoys is usually not that difficult until really late game. And especially if you have the Thunderpoon, everything, all the car combat is just much, much easier.
Mm-hmm.
I overall enjoyed the convoys. I thought it was a cool game aspect.
I disagree. So I'll take this point to talk about. I do not like how open the map is and how everything is available to you so early in the game. It's really not good for how I play games, which is do all the side stuff first. Because that's what I did. And so 1, I was very ill-equipped to take on these convoys, made it a real pain in the ass. 2, the game, if you just do story missions, is very short. Like it takes time because you usually have certain like things you have to do before you can do a story mission. But there's like not even 15 total straight up story missions. And one of them, mission 5 or 6 or something, like pretty early on, is you take out a convoy, and it's the story mission that introduces convoys to you. But I had taken out every convoy in the game available to me at that point before I even did that mission because I could. So I thought, like, well, why did you not have convoys just not appear, not spawn until after doing this mission? Because like this big story introduction to convoys was really just such a non-thing because I had already taken out like 5 or 6.
So is there still a convoy for the mission?
Yeah, because that convoy only spawns during the mission, which I mean, see, they do that, but there are many aspects of this that, like, for example, like the minefields, there's no mission introducing those, like story mission. It's just you find them and it tells you, oh, you need the dog in the buggy, and you're like, oh, okay. I feel like with stuff like the minefields and the convoys, they should have, 1, in the case of the minefields, had a story mission introducing them. 2, don't have them spawn until after you get to that point. And I think that can apply to other things as well, like maybe the death runs as well, because you actually have to do 1 death run for the story, which kind of introduces you to the guy who leads the death runs and all of the death run stuff. But by that point, I'd already done like 10 different races, so I
I
already
know
knew
you're
all
not
of that.
talking about Crow Dazzle,
I am talking about Crow Dazzle.
the boy.
I do love Crow Dazzle, but yeah, I was like, man, like this thing that I'm doing, like this race, this convoy, it loses a lot of luster because I've already done so many when this is supposed to be like introducing me to it, because I can just do it whenever I want.
Then why didn't you just play the story missions?
Because that's not how I do it. That's not how I do
Dumbass.
these games. I told you it's a problem for me with the way I play games. Some people absolutely not a big deal. But to me, I was like, why would you not? Because there are so many games that do that, like
Right.
open world games where you can't, like, imagine in Batman Arkham City, if you could like destroy all the Titan tanks before talking to Bane about the Titan tanks. It'd be weird. Like, why? You know? So it's like, just wait, have them spawn later. I know that's a thing people can do. Anyway, that's all I have to say about that. It's fine. But because I was saying the convoys in the last area, Pink Eyes territory, I did have fun with, because those, by that point, I had the Thunderpoon, and it was such a difficulty jump between the convoys in the first two areas and the convoys in the third. But it was actually difficult. Like, I actually had to take out all of the supporting vehicles to get just the main vehicle left because they were attacking me. When with the first ones, I didn't have to do that. I just drive around, use my shotgun to blow up the tanker, and then it would be over. But this, I actually had to take out the other vehicles, and then the actual big vehicle itself is a lot of work to take down. Those last like three in that final Pink Eyes area of the game, much more fun.
Right. So next we have the enemy camps. These are like oil barracks, top dog, transfer tanks, stink gum. These are just different types of enemy camps that are all pretty similar. They just have different objectives. They're basically large enemy bases. You've seen them 1,000 times in games. They're just enemy outposts. Each type has a different main objective, whether that be like eliminating enemies or destroying all the oil tankers in a camp. And destroying or clearing each of these camp lowers the threat in the given area and gives max a bonus amount of scrap, which is 20 for each camp every undetermined amount of time.
Yeah, playing the game, I could not figure out what the time gap was
Yeah,
between
I didn't
getting
know either.
scrap.
But that's referring to every so often. Scrap will be added to Max's inventory, and
Because of the camps.
It's just unclear. Yeah.
Yep.
It's just really unclear.
Yeah. So one, I love the enemy camps. They were awesome. As said, I love the physical combat, and this is the parts where you do most of your physical combat. My favorite type of camp are the top dog camps, because you have the mini bosses, the top dogs at the end. My only complaint about the top dog camps is every top dog is literally the exact same, like in terms of their moves and everything. So you take them all down in the exact same way. I wish there was more variety there.
Yeah,
but
it definitely felt like an afterthought.
Yeah, that's fine. Also, I feel like this is a first in my experience where enemy camps, when you take them over, they become like ally camps, like most games that have enemy camps. But unlike every other game I can think of, you can't fast travel to these camps, which I think is just dumb, because you can only fast travel to the strongholds and the balloons. And it makes it kind of annoying when you're going around doing stuff when there is, you can also fast travel to death runs. But a lot of times I needed to go somewhere that was not really close to a fast travel point. And it's like, oh, here's a camp that's close, but I can't fast travel there. I thought that was kind of annoying.
Right. So lastly, we have these scavenging locations. These are small locations containing useful items from Max, such as scrap, project parts, car bodies, history relics. There are a lot of these, as I mentioned earlier. The map is just riddled with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Some of them are easy and some of them are really confusing.
Yeah.
Like even just getting to them.
Absolutely. There's one that sticks out in my head where one of the scrap pieces is like, the camp is sort of on a mountain with like a little cliff, right? Like a little higher part of the mountain right next to it, that there is a scrap piece on the very top of that mountain. But, and this goes with the not great parkour / human traversal aspect of this game, there is no indication that you can climb this mountain. I'll give credit with the camps, because the camps also have project parts, history relics, scrap, stuff that you find. They're the like optional objectives. I guess I don't know if it goes to say the consistency in a bad way or a good way of any time I was at a camp or even a scavenging location and I could not find like one piece of scrap, two pieces of scrap, history relic, whatever. If I looked up, oh, this camp name, scrap locations. Yeah. It would always be a Reddit thread or a like Steam forum post of, hey, I'm missing 2 scrap in this place. And I'm like, I'm missing 2 scrap in that place. And the first answer is, oh yeah, there's this part here, go there. And I would, and like every single time that would be the one I was missing.
Yeah, I was able to look up a lot too, and that's because all the camps, all these scavenging locations had unique names. Thank God.
The scavenging locations did not all have unique names. I learned the
Oh
hard way,
no.
but again, it was such a, I guess it was such a small
My
number that I
bad.
had
I'm thinking
trouble
of
with.
camps I had
Yeah,
trouble with.
all the camps have different names. No, the scavenging locations, much rarer that I had trouble with those compared to camps. But if I did, I would literally just search like dry gusty scavenging locations. And again, always one of the first results would be a forum post like, hey, in this one specific scavenging location, I'm missing this one scrap. It's kind of in this area. And I'd be like, that's the one I'm looking for. And I'd click on that and find it very quickly. Anyway, so then continuing on with our extremely long gameplay mechanics, wasteland missions, they're side missions. That's there's not really much more to talk about. They're side missions. Right, Noah? Side missions?
Yeah.
And then we move on to the death runs, varied races scattered through the wasteland. They can be done using like each location has a list of vehicles you can choose from, either different like random enemy vehicles or the archangels. There are three types of races: the scatter run, the barrel bash, the time bomb. Each race has a completion time and a legendary time. The completion time just means you beat it. Legendary time gets you a Griffith token. We'll talk about those. Overall, I gotta say, I like the death runs, but I also wish there was a bit more to it. Like with a name like Death Run, I was expecting more death.
That's fair. There's not a
Typically,
lot of death at all.
yeah, typically, because one, usually in okay, so the scatter run and barrel bash, talk about those two first. One, I love scatter run because literally you can take any path ever to get to where you're going, and all the different people you're racing against will take different paths. It's actually really cool. I thought that was really cool. The barrel bash, you have to go on a set path because you have to hit barrels along the way. And then time bomb, you just are going and people are trying to stop you. It's less of a race. One thing I didn't like is I would usually have my shotgun with me, and the second the race starts, I would just start shooting people because all the enemy cars have like barrels that you can just blow up and it insta kills their car. And like enemies like don't respawn, so you can literally kill all the competition and just take your time getting there. Obviously, you're still under a time limit, but you're not having people trying to run you off the road. Really, my biggest issue, like why I sometimes struggled with these races, was the handling. Again, with like me talking about inconsistency, the worst in barrel bash because you have to run into these barrels, and for some reason, sometimes I would run to a barrel, I'd go straight through it, move on, and then I'd run into a barrel, it'd get caught in my car, I'd do a spin out, I'm lost, I just got to quit and restart because I can't make up the time, and that's really the only times I would struggle.
Yeah, I had that happen and I found out the mechanic was if you turn, if your car was in a turning state when you hit the barrels, you would spin out. But if you were no direction going straight, you would be fine.
I feel like I did try that, but I'm not confident enough to say I did try that.
Yeah, I
Um,
tried it.
but death runs, the only place I used other enemy vehicles and the archangels. That's it. The only places, because there's just nothing, again, because you have to, but other than that, there's no place to use them in the game. But I did like the death runs for that reason, because it made me use other vehicles.
Right.
Yeah, that's the death runs. They're pretty fun. Anyway, no, I talk about Griffa.
So Griffa is this weird wandering dude that is used to upgrade Max's abilities such as health, scrap collecting, melee damage, and you use Griffa tokens. Jaden mentioned them earlier. You get them from assorted activities and leveling up and stuff.
I loved Griffa as a character. I thought he was awesome.
Yeah, he is really weird, very interesting, and the upgrades are useful and it's easy to max them all out.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all I got. You want to talk about challenges?
Yeah,
I don't
so
know.
another way to get Griffith tokens are by completing challenges. This increases your legend that we'll talk about in a second, but categories include combat, wasteland exploration, and vehicle combat. There are a lot of challenges and many of them are repeatable. Like for example, there's one for like ramming 10 of X, Warboy vehicles. And that could repeat, like you do it again and again and you get more Griffith tokens. The challenges were okay. There weren't too many that were like too extremely difficult. I found I
Yep.
actually completed them all
Um,
the non-repeating ones, I mean.
No, because you can't.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that one. Well, I completed all the ones I could.
Okay, that's fair. I thought the challenges were fine. Really, and as I mentioned earlier with the other vehicles, the only time other than races that you would use vehicles that are not the Magnum Opus, and even some of the Archangels, is challenges, car combat challenges require you to use different vehicles sometimes, which I guess I get it because it makes you use those other vehicles and makes them have a purpose in the game. But the fact that there's not really a point to doing them, you're there's no point. Like I still didn't do them. But for the wasteland exploration and melee combat, I did get most of those without even trying, which is a good sign because that means that it's not too much of a pain in the ass to do.
Right. Right, so another thing is your legend. That's basically like how legendary max is, I guess. There are 11 ranks. It requires 10 levels to reach the next rank. So every time Max levels up 10 times, he gets another legend rank. Level increases by completing challenges or legendary times and death runs or wasteland missions. The highest rank is Road Warrior. Yeah, and it's actually really easy to level up Max and to increase his legend. Basically, like upgrading everything in this game is simple, and that's a really great bonus.
Yeah. When you get to Road Warrior, you can keep getting levels and it just goes up forever. Like by the time I was done with the game, I was Road Warrior level 121. And like by Road Warrior level 14, you can upgrade all of the things with the Grippa tokens. Like that's so definitely like something that seems way harder at the beginning, but man, you'll do it very quickly.
Right.
Yeah. And then collectibles. So pretty much I guess kind of the three I don't I mean the game has a bunch of different categories for collectibles, like the archangels are considered collectibles, whatever. For me, really, there's just I would say 2 to 3, being one, the history relics, which are pictures of or notes from the before times. There are a lot of them. They're fine. I mean, they don't really do anything to collect. There are the project parts, obviously used to upgrade projects and strongholds. I put those there because they didn't really fit anywhere else because I mean you do just find them. And then there's the Scrotus war insignias. These are found at camps. They're little like Gears of War esque insignias. Like I always thought Gears of War when I found them. Like because it's a gear, yeah. And
That makes sense.
you just break them. And thank you. You just break them, and that's it. Like they don't do anything for you. The relics and war insignias, other than I think you do get like I think it is like a challenge to find all the history relics, and it definitely is a challenge to destroy all the insignias. But other than challenges, they're just there for your pleasure, I guess.
It's kind of hard to find some of them.
Yeah, again, sometimes I'd have to look them up, so they can be annoying. Now we're moving on to notable trophies. As we have mentioned in previous episodes of our podcast, as well as this episode, the platinum in Mad Max is unobtainable for a very dumb reason. So the reason why is this trophy up to the task. Complete all non-repeating challenges. So there is a project in every stronghold called a scrap crew, where basically while your like PlayStation is off, while the game's not on, they would collect scrap. And then when you turn the game on, you could get the scrap they collect. You have to get 500 scrap from scrap crews. Overall, I don't think it's that hard, but the very dumb part of this is that doing that required an internet connection, and the servers to Mad Max have been shut down. So it's literally impossible to get, which this I feel like very much defines our hatred for online related trophies, especially this, which really has nothing to do with like multiplayer. It's just something you have to be connected to the internet for. And it's dumb. I just think it's so dumb, especially because if you look at it, you have the camps that give you scrap every undetermined amount of time. So why couldn't the scrap crews work that way and not require online? It's dumb. It's just stupid.
Yeah, it's horribly stupid.
Horribly stupid. Really, just got out of that platinum. No, I will tell you, up to the task is the one trophy I do not have in Mad Max
Why?
because I got every other trophy.
That is so funny. So we're at the same place.
Anyway, looked everywhere. Loot all scavenging locations. There's 227. That's too many. There's too many.
Yeah, if you have something in your game that equals the amount of Riddler trophies, it's too many.
Yeah. We talk. There are several games we've talked about previously, open world games, where I have said, "Oh, I was intimidated heading into this game, but when I looked at the trophies, man, thank God they don't require you to do everything. You know, you just have to do you have to do a lot, but you don't have to do everything." Days Gone, funny enough, a very good example of that, where it's a very big map, but you do not have to do everything, and I love that. Mad Max, you have to do everything. Pretty much every other trophy in this game, you'll get just getting the challenges, because most of the trophies are also challenges. For example, loot all scavenging locations. But and I said I got most of them naturally, but specifically like the car combat ones, like you got to do a lot of stuff, man. It's a lot. Like
It is
even
a lot.
yeah, I don't know if I would have done it even if the platinum was obtainable, because those car combat ones are just super annoying, and it's just a lot, man. This game asks everything of you, and you know, yeah, it's a lot. I also did want to comment on looked everywhere, loot all scavenging locations. That trophy is glitched. From my research, if you get all the scrap in a scavenging location, and it like this notification pops up that says 100% looted or something like that, and the game autosaves. If you die while the game is saving in the game, you've completed that scavenging location, but it wasn't added to your tally. So it is possible to lock yourself out of that one. And I did not know it was possible until after I had already gotten like 190 of them. So I was just like, well, I hope it's still possible for me to do it.
Yeah.
And it was, but yeah, it's kind of annoying because there are absolutely some people out there that got stuck at 226, and I cry for them because man, that is the worst. Anyway, so let's move on to our questions. Favorite moments, Noah.
My favorite moment is the beginning when you meet Chum Bucket and befriend the dog, and then you get your car, and it all just starts coming together.
My favorite moments are anytime Griffa is on screen. Every time you go to him to upgrade, which I only went to him like 3 times because I would just build up a bunch of Griffa tokens and go there and spend them all at once instead of like going there every time I got one, because you get them very easily. And there's only like a few places you can even get to him, so it's kind of annoying.
Yeah.
But every time you would go there, he would talk to Max in like, his typical like weird roundabout prophet
Prophetic.
way. I was just say like he's a prophet, like his weird prophet way of riddles and stuff, and Max would talk to him. And I feel like pretty much all you learn about Max as a character is just when you talk to Griffa, because Griffa just somehow knows all this stuff. And it's the only time where Max really kind of sees any sort of character growth is in talking to Griffa, which again is all thrown out the window when you beat the story. But yeah, it was just really like cool. I just loved hearing him talk. Like I loved his voice. Like I don't typically like Australian accents. Sorry to our listeners in Australia, but I really liked Max's voice, which is good because he's the main character, and I really like Griffa's voice. I just loved going to Griffa and hearing them have their conversations. It made me want to go there more just to hear what he had to say.
Yeah.
Favorite boss battle, Noah?
My favorite boss battle is probably Stink Gum.
Gotcha. My favorite is the first time you fight Scrotus. You fight him twice. The first time is a hand-to-hand combat thing. The second time is the very last mission where you're in vehicles. I again, the melee combat is so good, and this fight against him, he's very much like a top dog, but it is different enough that I really enjoyed that fight. I also when I did it the first time on my game, it glitched and his health bar disappeared, and I was probably fighting him for like an hour, and he just didn't die, so I had to die to
What
restart the
the
fight.
hell?
Yeah.
And you were like, oh man, this is a really long intro
Nah,
sequence.
well, his health bar disappeared, and I thought, oh, okay, I'll just keep hitting him, and eventually, obviously, I thought it was just I can't see his health bar, but it's probably still there going down. I just can't see it. And then like I did a challenge in that fight where you have to kill 15 enemies in a row without getting hit or something, which is pretty hard to do. And because I did that challenge, I was like, man, I know for a fact if I die, it's going to reset that challenge and I won't have it completed. And I just liked the thought of, oh yeah, I did that challenge. So I kept trying in the vain hopes that it would continue on the fight, but it didn't. And so I finally just had to die and restart it. Noah, anything you like that we did not talk about?
No, I will give another shout out to Crow Dazzle though.
I do love Crow Dazzle. I thought he was really flamboyant and cool. Anyway, what we didn't like about the game, Noah.
You have it here, but I also didn't like Max's traversal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Max's traversal is just in any open world game I played, just one of the worst. He has a shitty little jump, and that's it. Like he's not very fast either. Like you literally have to drive anywhere. It doesn't matter if it's 10 feet away. Just get in your car and drive. He's just too slow. But also like it's so stupid to me how there can be any open world game, whatever, where you can't vault over waist high objects. Playing Mad Max really, it reminded me of Dear Esther, because I played that game in the middle of me playing Mad Max, because it was a quick game. But Dear Esther, no, it's one of the first walking sims ever. Well, not one of, it is the first walking sim ever made before walking sim was a genre. And in getting all the trophies in Dear Esther, there is like a playthrough version where you can hear director's commentary throughout the whole experience. Not throughout the whole experience. You like find these little like they're like floating tapes, and you interact with it, and you know they start talking about whatever. It was a 3-man team that made the game, and while overall they were interesting, I remember one where one of the people was talking about walking being the default thing and joking about how like, well, how silly is it if you just run everywhere, you know? And it also reminded me of how sometimes I would see as a counter argument to people complaining about not being able to jump in games. Someone said, I remember once in like a podcast, well, how often do you just jump, you know, in your daily life? Like, why do you need a jump button? And I thought they're both incorrect, both arguing against running and arguing against not jumping, because no, I don't run everywhere, and no, I don't jump randomly, but I still possess that capability. And that is why I'm really annoyed that Max has a shitty little jump and he can't vault over like a waist high concrete barricade, because it's like Jaden, who is not an athletic person at all to any degree, I could still make my way over a waist high concrete barricade. So it's weird that
pretty.
It wouldn't be pretty, but I could get it done. And the same, so it's like, why can't Max, this very physically fit guy, why can he not, you know? And
yeah,
the same with running. Like, I don't run everywhere. I could, hypothetically. So I feel like a character in a game should do that. And also Max's jump, even, there are jumps that Max could not make in this game that I'm like, I think, again, Jaden, not an athletic guy, I think I could probably make that jump. So why can he not, you know?
Yeah, I agree. It's horrible.
Yeah, that's my counter argument to anyone who says anything in games that don't have those abilities. Anyway, replayability. This is a beat and delete for me. I'll pair this in with my final thoughts. I love this game. It was great. Not top 3. I thought it was really, really fun. Really enjoyed it. But man, I will never play it again. It is too big, and there's just so much that I just can't. I just would not want to do it again.
I agree. It's a beat and delete, but no, this is still one of my favorite games of all time. I think it captures like the way they captured the Mad Max property is just so masterfully done. I thought they did way better than the movie, which I also watched after I played the game. That's why I'm really excited for the Harry Potter property to be in their hands.
Yeah,
And
Avalanche.
I can't wait to see what they do with it.
Yeah, Avalanche, very good track record with games. I didn't realize until you had said earlier this episode that they were the team behind Hogwarts Legacy. I mean, we've talked about it previously, but I just never put 2 and 2 together. Because we did do a video where we on our YouTube channel, wink, 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 where we talked about Hogwarts Legacy. And I know for a fact in that video we mentioned that it's developed by Avalanche, and never put two and two together that it's the same studio. So I very much trust their ability to make a good Hogwarts game because they made a good Mad Max game.
Exactly.
Anyway,
Now, Jaden. Okay.
no, go ahead.
Now, Jaden, I'd like to move on to the indie bit, the bit where we talk about indie games.
Yay!
Today, we're talking about Guacamelee Super Turbo Championship Edition. So
This is an exciting one. I'm really excited for this.
this is a funny story for us because we tried to start a YouTube
Here,
channel.
no, I'll
years
tell this
ago.
story. I'll tell this story. So
Okay.
we'll flash back to 2015.
Awesome.
Young Jaden in high school started playing Guacamelee. I played it once, got kind of stuck very early on in the game. I can't even remember where I was. I just remember getting kind of stuck, and then I gave up. And then a young Noah, as well as a young Jaden, were talking about wanting to create a Let's Play channel on YouTube. And we wanted to play co-op games, obviously, because there's two of us. And I thought, as I told to Noah at that time, oh, hey, this Guacamelee game, I just played it, but I didn't really want to continue it. It's got 2-player. We could play it together, and that could be our like first game we play. So on the origin of when we first came up with the name Super Gamer Bros, and man, in 7 years, never came up with anything better. We released one video of us playing Guacamelee Super Turbo Championship Edition.
And here we are.
I'd
actually like you to talk about it.
Okay.
I had paid no attention to the story.
Okay, basically the story, you play as Juan. He's a guy who's not a luchador in, a world where luchadors are basically like better than everyone else, so he's just kind of a loser. He is childhood friends with the president's daughter, never gets a name, that's literally just what she's called. And she gets kidnapped by an evil skeleton, Gran Calaca, who wants to mix the worlds of living and dead. He kills Juan, but then Juan gets the power of this magic luchador mask and sets off to rescue his childhood friend. It is a platformer / beat 'em up game. Yeah, that's it. You do a mix of platforming challenges and fighting, clearing out rooms of enemies. Noah, did you like Guacamelee Super Turbo Championship Edition?
I do like Guacamelee. I liked it back when we played it the first time still, and the platforming is my least favorite part of the game. We never got very far originally, obviously, but now I got pretty far, and I believe you probably have finished it. And
yes.
I'm having a lot of fun with it. More recently in the game, though, as I've progressed, it has gotten a lot more challenging. That aside, the combat is fun. The art style is very unique. It's aesthetically pleasing. And I also like the co-op aspect because I'm still playing it co-op myself.
Yeah. I really enjoyed it. I did get the platinum last night. I got the last trophy for beating the game on hard mode. Yeah, you get a lot of combat moves that are used in the platforming aspect of the game that I really enjoyed that. The platforming is very fun. It is very definitely gets really challenging towards the end of the game. And the combat is, it's fun. It's really fun. It's, again, a little more complex than I would have expected for, just what I'm playing. But I really enjoy the game. I also love being an indie game released, and whenever it was released, a lot of references to other games that I love. Like there's a Minecraft store in one city. There's a lot of like billboards of different luchadors referencing other games like Los Casa Crashers.
I did see that. I thought that was hilarious.
There's a reference to us before we even made our podcast. There's like Los Super Hermanos, two guys dressed in very similar outfits to the outfit on our art.
That's funny.
Yeah, they somehow knew. They somehow knew that we'd eventually get it going. Yeah, a lot of really cool references.
Yeah, overall a great game, and I actually will probably end up playing the sequel.
There's a sequel?
Yeah, Guacamelee 2.
Actually, I remember when that came out. I think that's why I played the first one to begin with. Anyway, yeah, great game. I would absolutely recommend it to people who like challenging games. Noah, you want to know what our next game is?
Of course.
Yeah, so you went with a throwback to the Super Gamer Bros origins with Guacamelee, I decided I was going to go back even farther to another, I think, important game. I feel in just at least me as the types of games I played. We're going to be talking about The Unfinished Swan.
Oh, that's a great game. I might actually have to play through it.
Yeah, I do too. Yep. So we've been talking about The Unfinished Swan. I'm excited for that one. It's going to be another good one.
Yeah, it was kind of one of the first indie games we actually ever got.
That is correct. And we'll talk about that next episode on another flashback. So, don't forget, new episodes every other Monday. Rate and subscribe. Tell us if you like our show, or tell us if you don't, and tell us why. Tell your friends and enemies about the podcast. And you can follow our Instagram, the Super Gamer Bros, for updates on anything we do. And you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, Super Gamer Bros, capital S, capital G, capital B, all one word, where we upload videos every Friday and additional if something comes up. Right now, our most recent video was actually a playthrough we did of Sifu, where for the first 15 or so minutes, you get to watch me play it and absolutely not do good in the first level. And then because he loves showing me up, you get to watch Noah beat the whole game in roughly 3 times the amount of time it took me to progress, probably not even a fraction through the game.
Right.
Yeah. And yeah, we will see you guys next game.
Bye.